Yeah? Up to me? Okay. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the organizers to have us here today. Claus, Noppeney, and I organized this session, and we are very happy to have three outstanding panelists in our conversation this afternoon. However, I would like to start with a general overview and brief statements in order to get the conversation going about how to remain creative in today's niche perfumery. I would like to start with with a couple of comments that we listed under the term pluralization of artistic perfumery, overall growth on the one hand, but on the other also fragmentation. As you can see here on the top, and those are numbers from Nielsen from last year, that fragrance sales in total dropped by 6% overall in the US. However, prestige sales rose, and at the same time, mass dropped significantly. On the other side, we see that launches in overall fragrance category also decreased, contrasting the development, so to say, in the artistic perfumery segment. And we also see that fewer women, a specific and special group of users of perfume, also dropped in 2016. However, on the other side, we see that the artistic perfumery segment, and Esxence is a very prominent example to showcase artistic perfumery, added more than 240 million to the fragrance market in the US in 2014. However, we also see, and that's mentioned at the top, fragmentation of artistic perfumery is taking place. We can talk about a growing niche, but in fact we have to talk about several different sort of niches. And just as an overview, I would like to show you the development of Esxence between those years, like from the beginning until now. And what you see here is on the left-hand side the total amount of visitors from 2009 till today. On the right-hand side, the total number of brands. And we start with the total number of visitors. And you can see that probably this year we will be around 8,000 visitors. So a constant increase of visitors. And at the same time, we also see, and a lot of people are surely familiar with the trend over here, but we see a constant, so to say, constant growth of brands that are represented here at Esxence. So one step back, if you think about niche, or if you think about artistic perfumery, then the question comes up, what is different, or how does brands in the artistic perfumery segment stand out compared to mass? So what we see here, we see several brands as defining themselves as known for specific foci of their brand. So we listed these three major claims. However, a lot of brands also mix in their focus. We listed here entrepreneurial, so owner-driven brands. We listed those brands that put a particular focus on quality, so a juice-focused motivation to create the brand. And third, a creative, or the self-definition of the goals and intentions of the people behind the brand. And at the same time, what is unifying artistic perfumery overall are those two shared ideas, namely, on the one hand, a minor focus, especially compared to mass brands, a minor focus and investment on marketing, and generally or oftentimes no market testing. However, and we will discuss that in a second, we see also developing challenges and changes in terms of retail. And we phrase it here as retail as the bottleneck, or as a way or as a challenge to get into the market. So the retailer in the end is really the decision maker to make brands prominent and visible. And what we see here on the market in general is that shelves are more and more also in the artistic perfumery development overcrowded. We see that in fact not all brands can be stocked anymore, and this actually hides increases, lets the requirements of the brands increase in terms of how they have to behave, or how they have to showcase themselves on the market. And when we think about retail, we can also think about the consumer, and the consumer is increasingly lost. So this hints towards the retailer as a very prominent and very important power maker or power entity. So we phrased on the next slide, very challenging, is there in a way a crisis of artistic perfumery, and why is that the case? Well, on the one hand, you see an increased demand for brands to professionalize, and this professionalization is visible in terms of packaging, in terms of point of sales material and PR material, samples, and so forth. On the other hand, you can ask yourself, with the multitude or with the number of fragrances on the market, you see several fragrances that are very similar to each other, and you can ask the question, why is one fragrance so much more expensive or so different? So a couple of questions come up with this number of brands available on the market. And third, once again, there's an increased requirement towards the retailer to make decisions, to choose, to evaluate which brands actually to stock. So we listed here this as a sort of crisis, but you can see it also from the other way around, namely this could also bring some merits forward, and there's more choice not only for the consumer, but also more choice for the retailer to stock. And with these brief statements, I would like to hand over to Claus to present the panelists.
Yeah. Thank you. The panelists, we would like to get into a conversation with the panelists and later on also with the audience, and to get you familiar or to familiarize you with the panelists, let me start with Lisa Bonfantti. Lisa Bonfantti is with Campomarzio as a marketing and communication manager, and Campomarzio is an Italian-based luxury good trading company, also with some flagship stores in major Italian cities, and she holds a degree in communication science from the University of Bochum. And then next to her, we have Barbara Herman. Barbara Herman holds a degree in film and rhetoric studies from Berkeley, and she has some background in journalism, did some work for Newsweek and a couple of other magazines and outlets. And she's probably known to many of you through her book, Scent and Subversion, that was published in 2013, I believe. And I think what is remarkable about her is her passion for vintage perfumes, and she's also the creator and the owner of a label, Eris perfume, that is also devoted to this segment of vintage perfume. And then we have next to her Rossella Caputo, and she is an international sales agent representing also some of the brands that are visible here out of the door. I noticed just a few. I don't know if you like that, but I take the privilege just to name them. Philly and Phil, for example, I noticed them here just out of the door, or Schwarzlose or Extra Atelier, just you're affiliated with them. And then you already met Bobo as a speaker. Bobo is, has a PhD in geography, and he's the owner and creator and manager of a consulting firm, Passion and Consulting. And finally, there's myself. I'm Claus Noppeney, and I'm a social scientist, and I've been doing work on perfume making and the field at Bern, University of Applied Sciences for a while, and there's a website affiliated with this. And for our session today, we thought to focus our discussion or our conversation on three themes. And Bodo's intro foreshadowed them. So it's about brands, it's about the quality of the juice as a major issue in artistic perfumery, and then finally the retail as a bottleneck. And let me start, and can we get over to the next slide? So what we have thought of is that we have some provocative statements on the slide, and perhaps some of the panelists might take up some of the points, or people from the audience might challenge some of these provocative statements. And the overall idea is to initiate a kind of meaningful conversation here in the room for about 45 minutes. Let me start. We could read them, but the panelists have them in front of them here, so I'm not going to talk about them in detail. But let me start with a kind of quiz, a question. So we all know Esxence has been out there since 2009, so it's quite a while now. How many brands do you think, and perhaps we start with Rossella, how many brands do you think have been continuously present at the fair over the entire period? Wow. Any ideas? I take this one.
Hello. I think it should be, it's on.
Okay, it's on. So how many brands have
How
been
many continuously present over this period?
That's a very interesting question, and we should really take some time to think about it. I've been following Esxence since the very beginning, I must say, and many of them appeared and disappeared instantly, like one shot,
Yeah.
maybe twice, then never again. Loads. Honestly, too many. Too many have been disappearing.
Okay.
In
Any
these
figures here? Barbara, do you have a guess?
No idea. No idea
Lisa?
at all. Yeah.
Okay. Any guesses from the audiences? Just to have a figure.
I would say no more than 50.
What?
I would say that no more than 50.
No more than 50. Continuously present. It's 3. Not to make. It's just 3. And any names coming to your mind of brands that have been here? Well, there were these 3. And basically, we talk about Flores, Linari, and Nobili 1942. Just these 3. And then perhaps a second question, and then we get more into content-wise. How many brands have been here for the last 5 years continuously? So 2013 until 2017.
I just guess now.
Yeah.
10.
It's about 30, 29 to our analysis. So what do we make out of these figures? How do you interpret them? What do they tell us?
Well, I would say this gives us an idea of how attractive this world of niche fragrances is, and there is probably a lot of creativity out there that wants to be expressed also through an olfactive creation. This gives also an idea of how difficult it is once you have your olfactive creation to let it grow and to keep it growing. So the creative vision is a thing. Let's talk about business. The business side is another thing. And they can combine, they can match, but you need to be aware of it once you start, once you enter this world. If it is your aim to grow in this world, maybe some of them just want it to be like a temporary experience. If so, why not? I mean, it's interesting. It's part of our life to have pop-up situations.
Kind of pop-up brand, okay.
Right. So that's my short vision about it.
Do you have an interpretation, or how do you make sense of that?
Well, I'm in the thick of it right now because I started out as a super fan of perfume, as Christophe Lodemil knows. I interviewed him for my book, and I started out as a blogger, and then I wrote a book, and I just sort of became obsessed with the idea of recreating an animalic floral perfume. And having done it, I realized how difficult the business side is. So I imagine, it seems obvious, all of these brands falling away because it's very difficult if you don't have training in business, if you are working full time, as I am, to actually grow your brand and do all the stuff. So it's like, constantly working on it. But I think that that's probably what it is that you just have to sort of know everything. And I know about perfume, but the business side is tough.
I definitely agree with both what Lisa and Barbara said. Actually, I'm personally approached quite often with startup projects, and because they call me and they say, "You're the only one that can help us." Well, no, you got to look a little bit more above, up in the sky, because they know I really am passionate about new projects. The thing is that you can create something beautiful, something that can really, make a sense. But then to translate that into business is a totally different atmosphere, totally different thing. And to me, believe me, I'm on the road on a daily basis. It's so tough to go out there with something that has no name, that is unknown, totally unknown, and then to make a statement, make an establishment, build foundations, and make, people perceive the value of what you're trying to share, to sell, that then if after 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 3 years, this person that created this beautiful project suddenly changed his idea and said, "You know what, I was just playing around." Well, my goodness, I would have preferred knowing it from the very beginning, because it's really tough out there, especially with something that has no name, no brand. So, wow.
Well, coming back to, coming back to the statements that we listed here, I'm particularly curious how you see this point or this development affecting, so to say, also the creative work of the perfumer in terms of the investment of capital, because here this second point, capital kills creativity increasingly so, because we see these amounts of brands on the market. What does this actually mean for the brands to, for both creativity of their work, but also for their investment requirements? Does capital kill creativity?
Well, of course, investments can kill creativity, but I believe that if a project has like real authentic meanings and soul, you shouldn't compromise. You can, balance the investment and really identify where and how and when, especially, maybe slower but healthier, without compromising creativity. Because to me today, one of the main elements to survive in this, let's say, chaos, if allow me the word, is to maintain something authentic. Then it can stand up and fight against anything, almost anything.
As an indie brand, it makes me laugh to think that capital could kill creativity, because if I didn't have this investor who sort of came out of nowhere to give me money, I wouldn't have been able to create a bottle of any of this stuff. I would have been able to buy the juice, but I had an idea of what I wanted the bottle to look like and what the box, and that takes significant capital. So I think if you have a passion for perfume and you have an idea and a vision, the capital just enables you to do more. So,
Okay.
no, it doesn't.
Yes, I would say in Italian we say I soldi non danno la felicità ma aiutano. So money doesn't guarantee happiness, but they help a lot. So money doesn't help, doesn't mean that you will have a brand lasting forever with a super creativity, but if you have a creative mind, a creative vision, and money, you will probably able to translate this in something that will last. So I'm not sure that capital and creativity has to be seen as two enemies. I mean, they can work together. In my opinion, it always comes from the initial vision of the one or the ones who start the project. They have to be a clear vision of what they want. And the clearer, the better they will be able to follow their path and will be able also to see how much they will need to do this. And also there could be paths to go that could kill creativity, like when you decide to go mass market. So you probably will have to compromise with your own creativity. But if you want to stay, I use this word, but I don't like it very much. If you want to stay niche, if you want to stay exclusive, you will still be able to keep your creativity and to focus on a target that you want to talk to.
Perhaps we take a second point here for a round of discussion with the brands. And the point I would like to mention is the one with the locals, the borders. It's the fourth one on the slide. The limits to brands are borders. So what Bodo and I, when we preparing the session, thought about is that the field is, and Bodo mentioned that in his intro, is very fragmented. So there are brands that are visible and successful in some markets, but lack this success in other markets. So what we see are local developments, local market successes. And we believe that this is particularly true in a field such as artistic perfumery because it's so specific and the scents are in a way standing out also, so they might resonate with local traditions and local cultures more than conventional scents. And this perhaps a question to Barbara as a brand owner. How do you experience that? Is that an issue for you, or do you see that your brand develops very locally in a way, or do you see that this is an overall development? How do you see that?
When you say develop, what do you mean by develop?
Well, do you see differences between local markets, and do you think that is something special for the field of artistic perfumery?
Yeah, I've only been around for like a year, so I would say in the U.S. it's just a matter of doing a lot of marketing, sending out samples. I mean, I think that, I've heard from many people that a store, for example, needs to know that you're going to be around and not, disappear in a few years. So I think maybe having more perfumes and showing longevity and showing that it wasn't just, a whim to create a brand. But it's still early days for me, so I don't know if I have a real answer to that.
Should we move?
I'm curious about the third point here. The opportunity to stand out shrinks, as we state, or we discussed earlier, that there's an increased normalization of niche because both in brand appearance and also in retail opportunity, there is less opportunity to clearly stand out from other brands or competitors. Do you agree? Do you see that as well?
On one hand, I can say yes, because if I take a look at the show, horrible word, I see some flatness, allow me. On the other hand, I believe if there's a true, once again, I love this word, authenticity, clearness, belief, soul, there's a true background. There's no blah blah storytelling. There's a true storytelling. There's something that really has to be shared with the outer world. Then I believe there is. But you have to have somebody able to express the concept, not only olfactive-wise, visual-wise, of course, and packaging. And this is not easy, believe me. This is not easy at all. So you really have to have a creative mind and soul behind it, helping, support, finance, marketing, sales, everything. It's very complex. It's not, I mean, so many times I am handed these little bottles, prettier, less pretty, very nice, glamorous, luxurious, whatsoever. But then I to myself, excuse me, I might sound very cynical today. I'm like, was there the need to create this? Did the market really need this, honestly? I mean, again, sometimes they really, you know, want me to test the market. And I go like, please trust me, I'm not the right person. Maybe you need somebody else because maybe, you know, not all projects are for everybody. So I take the product, okay, I test the market, I really, you know, try to do, but then it comes down to numbers. Because besides emotions, besides, oh, I'm passionate, I love it, I'm crazy, it's my favorite fragrance, it's what the market says. If the market responds, if I see 10 shops, 100 shops, 200 shops, whatsoever, again, it's about statistics. It depends on the feedback I get. So once again, let's go back to numbers. We necessarily have to go back to numbers. Sorry.
I mean, I guess, yes, it's hard to stand out, but if you really care about what you're doing and you just try to stay authentic, you also have to really be up on social media. I think that these days that's like practically a full-time job. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I mean, I'm too old to learn Snapchat. I just refuse to do any of that stuff, so I'm probably lost right there. But yeah, it's just there's so many ways that you have to engage with like a passionate fan base, have a relationship with bloggers. I mean, it is a full-time job.
And it's also an advantage of being focused on vintage, okay? Okay. Okay.
I would just like to add some few words. I do think there is still the opportunity to stand because there are lots of brands, it's a reality, but not all of them are so... you talked about marketing, so niche means no marketing or no attention to these details. This was in the beginning maybe something that niche brands could live with, no marketing, but today it's very important to have a clear marketing plan to stand out. So, and there's still lots of brands without marketing plans, I don't say without plans, but without marketing plans. And so there is still room for those brands which are able to, as she said, to see the complexity of the field. Of course, you don't have to do advertising in a magazine. That's not the point. But there are so many paths you can go. Social media, inside the stores, it's very, very important to give support to the retailers who, at the end, sell your products. Not only giving them a story, as she said, which is very important. This is number one. But second, you also have to support them with some kind of materials, and this is an investment, again. So coming back to the first question, it is important to have capitals.
I have a crazy idea we haven't discussed before. Why don't we ask the audience if there's a comment on the brand and then move on to the next topic? Is there any response to these provocative statements here or any questions in the audience before moving to the second theme, the quality issue? Anybody wants to talk about, raise a point there? Well, in English, please. Do we have a statement there?
Yes, good morning. I had just a remark when you say the number of brands who are constantly here since the beginning, but if they're not here, that doesn't has to mean they are dead, of course. There's a life outside. And because I think even to outstand, it might be something to find other ways than shows or shops even to present the brand. It's probably next to the product that they will have to find to another way to stand out of the other brands.
No, that's right. Thank you for clarifying this. That wasn't the mess. I didn't want to send the message that this means that the brands are out. No, but it could also tell us something about the fair, about Esxence. What is the role of Esxence? Is this a meeting point for regular business? It might tell us something about Silvio's job. Is he doing regular business, or is his focus on new business acquisition every year? So there are various interpretations of it. It's just the fact that there were 3 brands continuously present here. Why don't you move on, Bodo, for the next theme?
Well, our second theme, and here you see some statements in terms of quality of work or the quality of the juice, focuses on, well, the juice. And what we list here, or maybe to start with one of the points that we list here, we see or we discuss that the perfumer oftentimes is in a way a cipher for quality, so that if you have a name of the perfumer behind a brand or behind a specific scent, then this automatically means something in terms of the quality of the scent. Do you see that in terms of either your brands or the brands that you are representing?
Well, I can confirm this absolutely for some collections and some creations. On the other hand, sometimes very young noses or unknown noses are able to create some masterpieces that will last through time. And so both cases, you can have both cases actually. Of course, in the first case, it's reliable in some way. I can't expect an important nose not to in some way reach a certain level of quality. I give it almost for granted.
Just a quick feedback question. Do you see there a certain degree of saturation of like hearing this and that name too often?
It happens. I can say it happens. Like sometimes we have this Italian expression, like when somebody's everywhere, it's like prezzemolo, parsley. It's everywhere. So with my heart, I call these noses, an adorable parsley. Their work is excellent, but they have so many, I can't say too many, but they have numerous, if not countless, collaborations. I don't know which benefit this can lead to in the length of time, through time. I don't know, honestly, if this is positive or negative.
I think for me it was positive because my perfumer is Antoine Lee. He has a reputation, sometimes good, sometimes bad, but he has a reputation as an amazing perfumer, provocative perfumer. So that gave me a little bit of, I think, gravitas as a new brand owner that, I have this amazing perfumer with me. On the other hand, I think people have maybe preconceived ideas of his style. So I thought it was really wonderful that he was able to showcase the sort of romantic side of his perfume making. So, I think there's good and bad. I mean, you get the recognition of this name, but, maybe there are preconceived ideas about what they do.
It's interesting because actually we are talking about noses. We know the name of the noses maybe since 6 years, 10 years. Before, nobody cared about who made the perfume. Now perfumers are stars, like cookers are stars. I mean, there's a kind of personalization, which is good, of who is doing what. But that's something really new. There's still place to get also new names and to see them grow. As a sign of quality, yes, as she said, sometimes people think, okay, no, I don't like how he works, especially, but we should, I think we should keep in mind that a perfumer is not always the creative element. I mean, it's the creative element in the meaning of translating something that he gets from others, and sometimes is free to do what he wants to do. These are two different things. It's like one artist playing piano, Mozart, or is doing a play for himself and creating a new melody. These are two different things. So maybe we should also be able, we in the industry should also be able to conceive, to transmit this content in a way to the possible retailers and to the customers. Because sometimes the ideas are quite unclear maybe, or just in one direction.
Perhaps let's quickly look at the last provocative statement here. Good work loses against big media budgets. I'm wondering, what does the audience see here? Who agrees with this statement? Who sees it this way? Could you lift your hands? Is it really this antagonism, and is it really the fact that good work loses against big media budgets? Who agrees with this? Just one. Just two. Three. And who doesn't agree? Who disagrees? Well, it's in the eye of the beholder. It's an open, it's what you understand of it. At this point, it isn't operationalized. It's not defined here. But okay, so there is just two or three, and the majority. Okay. Okay. Should we move on time-wise?
No, we're fine. Coming back to this aspect of quality that is always in the eyes of, or in the eye of the beholder, I think also the second point here is important in terms of, we all know that a lot of media representatives and bloggers and so forth are here. Do you see that the quality is more and more negotiated, or in a way socially mediated through the blogs, broadly defined, or through online communication? What is your take on the online sphere broadly defined?
Wow. Yeah, you get to read some statements on blogs, and for instance, some shops make the following comment. You know, Rossella, sometimes I get end consumers coming in with a list, like a black and white list. I read on the blog that this is good, this is excellent quality, and this and this. And then they have the blacklist. Do not buy A, B, C, D, E, F, G. This is terrible. This is terrible because the shop owner doesn't know how to behave and to react to this kind of request. So sometimes blogs are in some way very important, very interesting, and there's great quality in the contents of what is written, but sometimes you cannot mix what you like and what you dislike with the quality of a fragrance. It's a totally different aspect. I can have this excellent quality and can say, I could never wear this perfume because it goes far beyond my pleasure. Maybe it's the number one fragrance in the world, the most expensive and the most incredible creation ever. But if I don't like it, I just don't like it, so I won't buy it. So it goes beyond the quality. That's my perception.
Sorry, what's the question? I think that, a lot of perfumers I've talked to have a love and hate relationship with bloggers, and I completely understand that because a lot of times they can wield power without really having a lot of knowledge about what they're talking about. But I think the positive benefit is that, and I can say that I, kind of jumped into that current, is that bloggers are really getting people excited about fragrance, and you know, sort of showing people that there is scent culture and a subculture that they can be involved with, and it's very democratic. It's not top down, and you know, there's always good and bad with that. But I think you just have to take it with a grain of salt what somebody's saying, and you know, hopefully it inspires you to go out and try something. But I don't know a lot of people who, you know, just blindly agree with a blogger. At least I hope that's not what they do.
Yes, it's a tricky question. As he said, what's the definition of good work and big media quality? And I think perfume is, first of all, for the person who buys a perfume is mostly something emotionally bought, not something that you buy because it should. I mean, in this area of passionate people, it is something you buy because you smell it and you perceive an emotion. And this emotion can come from qualitative, perfect perfume with all the parameters at the very high stage, qualities of the raw materials, quality of the creation, everything is perfect. But it can happen that you smell something that is maybe cheap, not only because of the price, but also because of the quality, and something happens in your back mind, and you are on a time ride, and you are in your childhood, and you are happy, and you want this perfume, and you feel this perfume is the best thing ever happened to you. So quality is important, but it's not always, as she said, the reason why you choose a perfume and not another one. And this is something we could also discuss about. So it is so subjective. The perfume experience is something so subjective that it's really difficult to find categories and find definitions and find borders at the end.
Okay, so we talked, just for the people who came late or for the overall orientation, we prioritized 3 themes. We talked a bit about brands, and the second theme was quality, and now the third theme, we can move to the next slide, please. The next theme is the retail. The retail, Bodo introduced the retail as a bottleneck in the field. We have people here from retail because perhaps we start here with Lisa at this point, and perhaps we pick
the first one, maybe.
I'm sorry, the first thesis.
The first one.
Yeah, the first one.
I think it's very interesting to see. We don't mean to put you on the spot right now, but since you are also a retailer, do you see this point? Retailers are co-creators of brands, because I mean the brands come into the door or into the shop, but then what? So you have to decide. I mean, as I mentioned out earlier, there's more work to do for the retailer to decide and to choose which brands to stock. But then again, it's also a lot of work to communicate the brand clearly to the final consumer. And do you agree? Are retailers co-creators?
Yes, they are in a way, especially when the brand is still new and, as you said, it has still to be defined. Retailers are co-creators because they, with their commitment, they are able to let the brand grow or not grow. We have several retails in Italy and also different brands in our portfolio, and some of them were in our portfolio at the very beginning of their career, so to say, and it was hard. In the very beginning, it was hard to go to a retailer and say, here you have a beautiful project, trust him and give him a chance. And sometimes it took years before this brand at the end got what he deserved. But now it's got it, but it took years. So what is also important, I think, is the credibility of the brands on the one hand, is also the credibility of the retail, because retail can define themselves also as a brand. I mean, they have this chance to work out their brand image as well. And the better this brand image is defined, the more they can influence their customers, their clients, or they can help defining the brands they got inside as good brands. So they become a kind of quality Siegel, insurance. Thank you. So it's a work on both sides. The brand has to be a good brand with qualities that we mentioned, and the retailers as well should work on themselves in order to give the brands they have inside the credibility they deserve.
Yes, I totally agree with what Lisa just stated. As I mentioned earlier, to present a new project, start from zero and say, it's going to be out there, because these days especially, I find myself quite often in these situations with startup projects. But they want to look, the shops want to take a look, maybe they like it, but they really want to understand how long this project is going to last. Because again, many appear and disappear. So I find myself today, maybe after 2 or 3 years that I started with a new project, okay, it was good, it was excellent, I recognized it back then, I needed to know what the future was gonna be. Now that I see it's still at Esxence, or not necessarily, because I agree, not everything does not necessarily have to be here to still be alive, of course. But on the other hand, they need to see it's still there, it's still gonna be there, it's still gonna have a future, because way too many brands have disappeared. And on the other hand, there has to be, and without this, I'm sorry, even the most beautiful project cannot take off. Even if I put this beautiful project in the best shop in the world, and the shop does not dedicate, does not put heart and soul, commitment. Listen, let me tell you something very obvious. I like obvious things, but they teach a lot. If I get into a shop with a new project that's been in there for 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, and the tester is still new, that speaks everything. You're not allowing the end consumer to smell it, to understand it, to wear it, to experience it. So please, now you give me the answer, dear shop. However is that concept, that fragrance gonna take off if people are not smelling it? So without a true belief and true commitment, even the best project in the world cannot. So the shop really plays a major role, definitely.
I just have a question to you, Rossella, now that you mentioned it, because here on the slide we mentioned that, or we state that a multiplication of retail spheres is noticeable. So in Germany, for instance, there's much talk about concept stores or even fashion stores that stock some brands. But from your point, I take that if there's no capability of making recommendations or clearly transport the meaning of brands, then there's no good in being in more doors.
Just for the sake of having dust on the bottles, you know. Again, now these days, what I'm personally facing in the market, okay, we're going through massive saturation of the niche fragrance shops, but there's a huge, I don't know if I can say huge, but a big potential in upper and high class, alternative, avant-garde clothing shops. That's a reality, at least here in Italy, and I'm starting to see also internationally. But you have to have people that are passionate. So for instance, before I personally trust a shop that is not a perfumery, I really have to have somebody that is passionate, that maybe is a fragrance lover, collector, and everything. Otherwise, it's very risky, very dangerous for me to give a new project into a shop just because everybody wants fragrances these days, niche fragrances. It's not a trend. It's not about fashion. It's about passion. And it doesn't matter in which segments. Here we have, you know, Barbara and Lisa, and we're working from different sides of the let's say, the universe of the niche fragrance, and on a daily basis doing totally different things that all collide together in some way. But again, without strong passion and clear vision and full commitment from every single side, there's no way. No way. It's too tough. Today it's too tough. 10 years ago, I would have said something totally different. But 10 years ago, it was different. Totally different. Thank you.
Perhaps the audience, you've read these 5 statements. Are there responses here, or challenges, or do you agree, or spontaneous questions?
Thank you. Good afternoon. Maybe the first statement can be rephrased, because I do believe, as Ms. Bonfantti said, if there's a brand that has not fully defined itself, then maybe the cooperation with the retailer can help define it. But actually, it should be the brands who define their brand, and they should be the ones who determine what needs to be done. And the retailers, or their role is basically to be the voice on behalf of ideally on behalf of the brand vis-a-vis the consumer. So they may not be co-creators, but co-establishers, if you will.
One point that we haven't mentioned so far, I think, is this. This part of retail is multi-scalar, and we mean by that retail increasingly, also in the artistic perfumery segment, takes place online, and we see several shops as very successful in this part. How do you, we talked also about recommendations or the experience of the retailer. What do you make of the move towards online? What are the risks and the benefits?
Interesting. These days, precisely, I'm going through this, I would say almost on a daily basis. Shops these days are such in a difficult situation, saturation and everything. And some of them are very well organized or online. Most of them are not, are starting to. What I see, though, is a bit of, in some way, allow me the word, improvisation. I see many shops seeing the solution in online. They think that online will clear the sky and make a better life and solve their problems. I think it's too superficial to put it in these words. Way too superficial. That's not how it works.
When would you, Barbara, decide to go, or how do you decide? I'm not sure if Eris is already in many online shops, but how did you decide to make the deal with online retailers?
I mean, I don't think of them as online retailers, even though they're carrying the perfumes online. I visited, with the exception of maybe a couple, visited the actual brick and mortar store to make sure that I liked the brands that were in there, that the salespeople cared about perfume and knew how to tell a story, because, you know, I don't want them to just say anything about the fragrances. But, you know, I think it's great that fragrance can be sold online, because I know that for, like, people in sort of small towns who want to try my perfume, for example, I can send out samples to them. If they like it, they can order it, and it just, you know, it gives them access to, you know, sort of like fancy big city perfumes that they might not have access to. But I don't know if I would want my fragrance on a purely online, you know, website.
I don't have to answer? Or no, I just wanted to add that an online shop is actually a new shop. It is a shop. It is not just something that you can do with your left hand. Some people sometimes think it is easy to have an online shop. She said the solution of all the problems. So once you decide to go online, once again, be aware of what it means. It means to put a lot of investment in time and in money, but also to understand that whereas you can offer a perfume inside the shop with your own words, letting them smell, letting speak for himself, because once you smell the perfume will tell you a story. From the online side, you won't have this kind of experience. So you have to, and I think online for perfumes is still, hasn't found yet a way to really communicate perfumes without using the perfumes. This is still a challenge. Some online stores are doing very well because they started very early, because they have found a key also to talk about perfumes online. But these are the point of references for all the people who can't access the shops where some brands are sold in. New online stores have really a hard job to do today, I think.
Perhaps in conclusion now, it's hard, of course, to summarize this panel and what are takeaways and insights, but perhaps I'm happy to share my overall experience throughout the panel. I really enjoyed it, and I think there are lots of questions we might continue later or in smaller groups also, or on spots here. What I really liked about the panel is actually that we took a couple of moments or 45 minutes to step out of our daily operations and daily activities and to zoom out of them basically and to reflect a little bit and shared our experiences, our insights, and I got a lot out of it, and I hope you also can take something from it. And thank you very much for your attention, and thank you very much to Rossella, Barbara, and Lisa. And yeah, Bodo.
Maybe one final statement is that here in the second row we mentioned that stocking means loving, very cheesy in a way, but also doing brands or developing a brand is also loving. So we would invite you to share your ideas and to share the love for artistic perfumery. Thank you.
So.